In the mixer, I have 4 cups of flour total. So I have 3 of regular all-purpose and 1 of whole wheat and 4 teaspoons of salt. Adding 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then I'll add 4.5 teaspoons of yeast. Now this is just quick rise yeast, it's the smaller pieces, and I'm not going to put them in water to warm and pre-soak. I'm gonna mix it all together. Kind of like a quick bread almost. So I'm gonna start, rather than a dough hook, I'm just gonna get the gluten really working, and I'm gonna start with a paddle. And I'm gonna just turn it on low. And then adding 4 cups of liquid. So I'm gonna just put in water. Total of 4 cups. We'll almost turn this into a batter, and warm water will get the yeast going and eating up the little bit of sugar we put in there. Then we'll go ahead and add more flour, switch to the dough hook, and create a soft ball of dough. So once you've got it blended, you're going to beat it for about 2 more minutes, and then we'll switch to the dough hook. While I'm beating this, I'm just going to add some flavor to the dough because I want it as a sandwich bread or a French loaf to go with lasagna or something like that. So I'm just going to add some Italian seasonings, about 1.5 tablespoons. You can add garlic, you could add celery seed, you could add whatever kind of flavor you want your bread to taste like. I've got the dough hook ready. It's well blended and smooth. So I'm just going to turn it on. And I'm going to add a total of approximately 6 cups of flour. You can mix and match whole wheat or just do all-purpose until it forms a nice dough that's still just a touch tacky. And then you're going to knead it for about 8 minutes once it's all mixed up as a ball. So you just keep adding your flour cup by cup, let it get mixed in a little bit. It'll take probably 5-6 minutes to get it all absorbed and start forming that ball. So this is at the stage of 5 cups of flour, and it's formed a ball, soft, that's just rolling around, picking up the dry on the sides already. So I have 1 more cup of flour to add here, and then I'll just let it go for a few more minutes so it becomes elastic. The dough has collected most of the dry flour around the bottom. If you find that you're still mixing and there's still quite a bit of dry on the bottom and it's just not absorbing at all, you might have to add a touch more water. Try a tablespoon at a time. If it seems too wet and very sticky where it's not forming that ball by itself, you might have to go ahead and add a tablespoon of flour. But so far this is coming together nicely. Again, if you want to add any flavorings, now is the time. It's hard to incorporate them after the dough has come together. You can add Parmesan cheese if you like, or cheddar cheese and chives, anything like that. Now is a good time to get it in there so it blends and can infuse the dough while it rises. I've stopped it for a minute to show you. As you pull it out, it breaks apart almost like a soft, stringy biscuit dough. So it doesn't quite have enough gluten formed in there yet. It is stretchy, but it will break apart easily. So we're going to let it go for another 2 minutes or so to really knead and get the elasticity and softness. Okay, so it's come together as one ball. I'm just going to give it a little feel. So it's got that sticky elasticness to it. It doesn't break off right away. It pulls apart. It's stringy. So that's the texture we want. And it is still just a little tacky. It's not as smooth, but you want that moisture in a French bread or to be really dry. So we're gonna put it, okay, so we're just gonna pull the dough hook out, grab it together all in one ball. I've got a bowl that I just sprayed, greased it just a little so it doesn't stick, and it can glide up the sides of the bowl as it's rising. So I'm just gonna put it in there, pat it down, give it one turn flip so the top is greased, and now cover it up with parchment paper and a light towel. All right, and a light towel. Wrap it up in the oven at 100 degrees bread proofing for an hour. Bread is out of the oven. Just take the towel off. It has definitely risen over the bowl, so you just want to punch it down by taking all of the air out, and then you got to give it a few minutes to rest. So squish all the air out, give it a flip, cover it back up and let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes. So we have our dough out of the oven, punched it down, released the air. I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to chop it in half, and then I'll make even batches. Well, somewhat even. So I'm going to roll this out. And just rolling it into, you could do it cutting into pies, or you can just wing it and try and make them all the same size, but I'm just gonna kind of squish all the air out and then make this easier to cut so they're fairly similar in size. So I'm gonna cut this loaf or dough amount into 12. So I'm gonna cut it in half, and then into half, and then each of those will make 3, which makes 6 on this side. So I'm just cutting them evenly. 3. Here's a good way to teach your kids fractions. So each piece cut into 3. All right, so then we have 12, should be somewhat even loaves. And then what you're gonna do, I'm just gonna move this whole thing up. Okay. And then whatever dough you're not using right now, wrap it up so it doesn't dry out. You don't want crunchy pieces of dough while you're working. And then I've got a cookie sheet with parchment ready to go here. And I've got a plate, nothing measured, but you know, 1/4 cup or so of cornmeal. I'm just gonna dip the finished loaf in on the base. So you're just gonna take this and you're gonna roll it, kind of like a cigar. Not that I roll cigars, but roll it out and just roll a little bit firmer on the edges to kind of get a, almost kind of like a hot dog look. So like that. So you've rolled, you kind of leave the center alone and you roll it out just by rolling the edges a little bit smaller, and that will go into a little bit of a loaf. And then you're just gonna roll the bottom of it, tap the bottom of it into cornmeal, and then put it on your parchment paper. There's one. And then after that, we're gonna just take an egg wash and wash it with egg and give the slices in it to make it look like French loaves. So I'm just gonna continue doing that. Squishing all the air out as you roll, and then rolling my edges. Roll the edges out. Doesn't have to be perfect. I like it a little bit rustic. Back into the Okay, now I've got 1 egg mixed up, just fork mixed up with a little bit of water. And now I've got a pastry brush. And I'm just gonna dip this in and coat a really light coating of the egg wash over each loaf. And this is gonna give that nice glazed browning on top, like you see on baguettes and French bread. Just do that to each one. And then you're gonna make 3 slits with a sharp knife. There you go. And then cover it up with parchment paper and pop it in the oven to rise for about 45 minutes. And just give the parchment a little bit of grease or spray just so that it doesn't stick to your paper, and you pull it off, your loaf will deflate. And then in the oven it goes, just at 100 degrees to keep rising. So we have the loaves out, they've risen, and now we're just going to put them in the oven for about 15-25 minutes maximum, depending on your oven, at 375.
And here they are, baked fresh mini French whole wheat loaves. I love fresh bread out of the oven, and these are no exception. They're absolutely delicious.